Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining my session today. My name is Anna Rasmussen. I'm the founder and CEO of OpenBlend. OpenBlend is a tool that personalizes and structures one-to-ones in the workplace. So I'm thrilled to be here chatting to you all today. The session we're going to look at today is around development. So the craze for development, the gap in fulfillment, and then I'm going to share what I and the team at OpenBlend believe is the way to go to satisfy this crave and close the gap. We're going to be chatting for 15-20 minutes, and the kind of the points that I'm going to go through is we're going to have a little look at the crave for development, so what it is. We'll look at the gap that exists, so we'll be pulling on some OpenBlend data to do that. We'll then look at the business case, so imperative, if we're going to raise any money to invest in this, what is the business case for it? We're then going to look at the OpenBlend approach to closing the gap. I'm going to talk to you about the approach that we're taking, having working alongside our customers, the approach, the solution that we've come up with. Then spend a little bit of time just looking at the importance of a one-to-one, which will give you a little insight there into the solution that we've come up with. And then at the end, we've created a report and a guide around pretty much everything I'm talking about today. So at the end, I'll just share with you our email address, and then you can request one of these guides that we'll send straight over to you. So first of all, this crave for development. So there's no denying it. I'm sure you're all aware of it, working in the HR profession. Everybody wants to develop in some way. So I don't know if this is a post-COVID drive, if it's a generational thing, if it's the instant gratification culture that we live in today. Whatever the reason, it is present. So incredibly, 87% of millennials say that development opportunities is one of the top influencing factors on whether or not to accept a job role. The second stat I find amazing as well, given where we were just a couple of years ago, but people 18 to 34 saying that the development they value above all else, including work-life balance. And then this last point here is actually from OpenBlend data. So we collect and enable people to talk about their motivational drivers. So 2 of those motivational drivers, there's 30 that they can choose from. 2 of those are clear career goals and progression at work. Now, those 2 motivators across every single customer that we work with, every user, are 2 of the top motivational drivers for their workforces. But it becomes more interesting than that, actually, because our data tells a very clear story here. There is a gap. Okay, so not only are clear career goals and progression at work 2 of the top most popular motivational drivers, they have the greatest gap in fulfillment across all users as well. And more importantly, it's actually getting worse. So as you can see by these charts here, as time goes on, the gap is getting larger. Now, we calculate the gap by asking every individual who's chosen these motivational drivers to score where they are now with it and where they need it to be in order to be fulfilled. And that's where we get that data from. So businesses need to take note. Not only is it a top driver, it's got the biggest gap, and the gap is getting bigger. So it should be a firm priority in every organization around this. So the business case. So we've already mentioned this is really important if you're looking for investment in this area. I don't want to teach you guys to suck eggs. You all work in this space, but there's lots of these kind of stats around. 76% of people are more likely to stay with a business that offers continuous development. 80% said if they're developing new skills, it will make them more engaged. And 87% of high performing companies provide development opportunities that support an individual. Now that one spoke to me because it's about they're unique to support that individual as opposed to just offering mass one size fits all. So this, get the business case, it's the how. So how do you address this? So this is where I'm going to share our approach at OpenBlend to closing this gap, ensuring people's crave for development is fulfilled. So as mentioned before, we've created this approach for our customers, but with our customers. So we're very close to all our customers and what do they think needs to happen. So first of all is this kind of mindset piece. So this is very much where Open Blend is as a mindset. One size does not fit all. Okay, so offering development opportunities out to everyone via an LMS or something like that, that doesn't work in our opinion. Everybody is different, and I've just listed 5 of the areas how I think they do. Everyone's at a different stage of their career. And everybody wants to develop in different ways in that career. Current capability levels, everyone's different, everyone's got a different starting point, everyone's got a different gate, a place that they want to develop. Whether or not an individual, and I feel really passionate about this one actually as well, is whether or not people want to develop short term, mid term, or long term, or they see them all together. Absolutely vital that there's an understanding of how that individual wants to develop. The level of self-awareness, I think, is really, it varies hugely. Some people are relatively delusional about their capability or how they need to develop, whereas other people are super aware. So everyone's different in that. Also, the level of support needed to achieve an individual's development goal varies right across the board. So you might have 2 people in the same role that are both developing towards stakeholder management. Support those two people will vary. So it's absolutely critical when you're looking at development to acknowledge that one size doesn't fit all, but really understand how important it is that the manager understands this per person. It's really key that the manager understands it and really understands it. So the second area that we've approached this with is around, so we've led with competency. Okay, so rather than skill based, we've looked at competency, and every business we're working with is different, and that's completely fine. So some organizations have a very well structured competency framework. So we're allowing them to put that into the software, but also to add custom items, because I think it's really important on a micro and individualized level between the manager and the direct report that they can put skills in, specific skills, things that are really, really personal to them, to add to it. Secondly, we work with a lot of organizations who don't have competency frameworks and they would like to borrow one. So we've created and we can preload a competency framework and again enable people to have their custom items in there as well. Or some organizations actually don't really like competencies and really just want these custom items to be created between a manager and a direct report. The one on the left is highly supportive, slightly less supportive, less supportive for the manager and the individual to identify what those development areas are. So we have broken this down into 4 phases of success around an individual's development. So the first one is around discovery. So an individual being made self-aware of what is important to them. So asking them questions around what they like about their current role, what they don't like about their current role, how they want to develop. Do they want to develop in role to become succession ready? Do they want to develop for a project? Do they want to develop laterally? There's a huge push for this as well at the moment. So that discovery piece, we support this by putting the individual's motivational drivers at the top of the page, just so that's front of mind, but doing everything you can to support the individual to become aware about how they want to develop. Once they know and they've had that conversation with their manager, they're both aligned, it's a collaborative process, they then create the development areas that need to be focused on to support them to get to where they want to on their development mission. So we recommend between 3 and 5 development areas. They could be competencies, they could be skill based. So what are those areas? And then to score the level of proficiency against each of those areas by the individual. So again, really personalized to them. Once you've got that, they've got a pathway. They have their own unique, co-designed, very much led by the individual actually, but supported by the manager, and the manager has awareness of it, designed pathway that's going to take them to how they want to develop. So even that point, it's hugely motivational because an individual has a development pathway that's unique to them. Then it's about feeding that into one-to-ones, ensuring that it's that you can assess ongoing progress in those one-to-ones. Now, the way that we do this in Open Blend, and again, you can do this on paper, you don't need to use a piece of software to do that, but we use the GROW model. So an individual's got between, as I mentioned before, 3 and 5 of these development areas. Each one of those will have a goal. So if it's financial acumen, for example, that's something that they need to develop, it will have a definition of what financial acumen means to that organization or self-defined. Then they'll say what their target level of proficiency is against that. They then understand where they currently are, and they are updating that. So what's the reason behind their progress? How are they progressing along? Then they're supported to have a conversation with the manager around the options available to move them towards their goal. How can you overcome obstacles? What do they need to do? And in here we have links into organizations, LMSs, mentoring programs, whatever that might be. So really supporting them at that stage to get towards their goal. And then based on that, what's the way forward? And any good conversation results in action. So what actions are they going to take as a result of the conversation around this particular development area? So it's really powerful stuff, because you're really getting into the nitty-gritty of the individual development area that's gonna is one of the steps that's going to get them towards their development mission, if you like. So we've mentioned around the one-to-one. The one-to-one is the game changer in here. So this enables the development to be addressed on a micro and individualized level, which is absolutely key. You'll hear repetition of this. My background's coaching, by the way, so very much looking at the individual here. So this is Open Blend supports the one-to-one, the structure of a one-to-one. We help people organize their one-to-ones. We help people prepare for their one-to-ones. We guide them through using the GROW model, and then that results them in action. So by getting people, supporting people to know that these regular one-to-ones are coming up, it's giving people the space and opportunity to prepare effectively for them, coming into a one-to-one and being guided through a conversation around the stuff that matters. So these development components come into this. We're based around an agenda, so you can talk about any of these development areas anytime you have a one-to-one. You just can stick it on the agenda, and then that sets the manager and the individual up to actually develop, to actually do things that are going to be moving them towards their development mission. So really powerful. So why do we feel that this approach closes the gap? So there's a couple of points I just wanted to highlight here. Effective one-to-one conversations around development is absolutely key. This is the bit where I think organizations get it wrong. So they have these development programs, they put people on training courses, they have fantastic LMSs with a huge range of courses, but what one-to-one conversations are happening about that individual's development? Supports a collaborative approach to career shaping. It really pulls the manager in and supports the manager, because sometimes this can be quite daunting for a manager, but supports the manager to have these career shaping conversations with the individual and that they're sharing it. Applying the GROW framework to really ensure that there's a support is given to that individual, not generic support or themed support. It's support for that individual. Keeps development front of mind. And if you're looking for how fulfilled people are around development, you don't want it collecting dust anywhere, a development plan. You want it front of mind and in regular conversation. So that's really key. And I think those together really satisfy this kind of crave for this continual learning and progression at work there as well. So what we've focused on here so far is very much the micro and individualized level. There is actually a way that we can close the gap looking at this at a macro level. So one of the great things about using software for anything is that it collects all this data, so this insight. So we can provide back to our customers now on a macro level what kinds of pathways are their workforce on. So, you know, do people know that about their organization? How many people want to develop in their current role? How many people want to develop towards their next role? How many people want a lateral move? How many people have got want to work, get ready for a specific project or a secondment, for example? Then look at the development areas attached to those. So what competency areas are most popular across the business? Okay, so what development areas are most popular? What custom items are coming out of that? But really exciting is this gap analysis against those development areas as well. So you might have 5 competency areas that are the most popular across the organization, and the gap is significant. So what can you do as an organization to close the gap further by ensuring that those particular development areas are being addressed through bigger initiatives? So my background is training and development, and training needs analysis is key to getting it right, and this will be able to provide this back. Succession planning, so, and it's a huge driver for organizations now. Who in the business has a desire to develop towards their next role, and what level, and what is that role? What are their timeframes, and what are their development areas? Can you at a macro level address those quickly and fast track those? And then, of course, success. So looking at how many of these pathways have been completed, were they successful or not? What are the retrospective comments? What can we learn from this? So we're always evolving and developing our approach to development, because there is a gap. There is a gap in the level of fulfillment. So and what we're going to be doing here is really tracking this as well. Is at the moment, just for reference, the gap I spoke about earlier is around 31%. So there's a 31% deficit on the level of fulfillment in these development areas. So by having these plans on an individual level, by providing organizations with the data that they need to really hone in and come up with, make strategic decisions about closing that gap, we feel we're in a really, really strong place to support our customers with this. So, but you don't need to do this to do a piece of software. You can do this on paper, or it's just a mindset piece as well. And what I was really passionate about showing you today is that. So that comes to the end of this session. So thank you so much for joining. We would love to send you this develop guide. So if you would like it, please drop us a line to hello@openblend.com, and we can share that guide with you. It's really informative, and hopefully we'll give you some good information to support you and your organizations to sort of close this gap on this sort of development craze, and feed into what the workforce is asking very much for today. So thank you so much for joining, and enjoy the rest of the sessions today.